My name is Dr. Sarah Mitchell, and I'm about to tell you a story that challenges everything science has taught us about the animal kingdom. For the past 15 years, I've worked with some of the most dangerous and rare creatures on this planet, from the anacondas of the Amazon to the orangutans of Borneo. I've seen it all, but what happened 3 years ago changed everything I thought I knew. About animals, about emotions, and about our connection to the wild world around us. I was working at a remote conservation sanctuary in Virunga National Park, deep in the Congo's dense jungles. This is where the endangered mountain gorillas live, fewer than 1,000 left in the entire world. Our sanctuary had one very special resident, a massive silverback gorilla we affectionately called Kong, 400 pounds of pure muscle and raw power, nearly 6 feet tall when he stood upright. His dark, intelligent eyes held a depth that made you stop and really think about what was going on behind them. Kong wasn't just any ordinary gorilla. He was the undisputed king of this jungle. His family group had 12 members, and he was their fierce, unwavering protector. I'd observed him from a distance many times. The way he moved, with such deliberate confidence, like he knew every inch of this jungle was his kingdom. The sanctuary had one strict, unbreakable rule: never directly approach an injured alpha male, especially not a dominant silverback like Kong, because wounded animals are unpredictable. And an injured silverback? That's basically signing your own death warrant. That day, it was a humid September morning. I was doing my routine health checks when the emergency call came through on the radio. Tom, our head ranger, his voice was thick with panic. "Sarah, we have a situation. It's Kong, poachers. They shot him." My heart stopped. "Where is he?" I asked, already knowing this was going to be bad. "Deep jungle, Sector 7. He's bad, Sarah, really bad. The wound is infected. Local team says he won't make it through the night without medical intervention. Sector 7. That was at least a 3-hour trek through the densest, most unforgiving part of the jungle. Dangerous terrain, no clear paths, and now with monsoon season, the streams were flooded and treacherous. "Wait for backup," Tom said. "The veterinary team from Kinshasa will be here tomorrow morning." Tomorrow morning. I knew Kong didn't have that kind of time. An infected gunshot wound, blood loss, and the jungle's oppressive humidity. He'd be dead by dawn. I grabbed my medical kit: antibiotics, surgical tools, bandages, antiseptic, 60 pounds of equipment. Tom was shouting over the radio, "Sarah, don't you dare. Protocol exists for a reason. You're going to get yourself killed." But I wasn't listening anymore. My mind was made up. Kong needed me, and I wasn't going to let him die. Not on my watch. The jungle started testing me immediately. Thick vines caught at me with every step. The humidity was so intense that my shirt was soaked through with sweat within minutes. A swarm of mosquitoes danced around me in a cloud, but I couldn't stop. I wouldn't stop. After 2 hours of treacherous hiking, I finally reached a small clearing. And there he was, Kong. My breath caught in my throat. This powerful creature, who had once been the king of this jungle, was now collapsed beneath a massive fig tree. Blood. So much blood had turned his silver-black fur dark and matted. His breathing was labored, chest barely rising and falling with each struggled breath. But his eyes... his eyes were still open, alert, watching everything. The moment I took a step forward, Kong growled. Low dangerous, primal. Even wounded and weak, his message was crystal clear. "Stay away." I froze. 60 feet separated us. My rational mind was screaming, "This is suicide." A wounded silverback, territorial and in pain. He could kill me with one swipe of his massive hand, but I saw something else in those eyes. Behind the pain, beneath the rage, there was fear. Kong was afraid. This mighty king of the jungle was afraid of dying. "It's okay," I whispered, knowing he couldn't understand the words, but hoping my tone could communicate something, anything. "I'm here to help you." With extremely slow movements, maintaining eye contact the entire time, I lowered myself to the ground. Non-threatening posture. Then I did something I'd seen in documentaries. I made soft vocalizations that mother gorillas use to comfort their babies. Low rumbling sounds from deep in my chest. Kong's growl stopped. Confusion flashed across his eyes. This human, Why was this human making gorilla sounds? Inch by inch, I moved forward, every movement calculated, every breath measured. When I reached 40 feet, Kong growled again, but this time it was less aggressive. More like a warning, a question. I stopped again, slowly opened my medical kit, deliberately keeping every item visible. No sudden movements, no surprises, just a little more, I whispered. Please, Kong, let me help you. 20 feet. My hands were shaking. Not from fear. Okay, mostly from fear, but also from adrenaline. From the sheer weight of this moment, 10 feet. I could see his eyes clearly now. The pain there was unbearable to witness. Blood pooling beneath him, attracting flies that buzzed in the humid air. The wound. God, the wound was worse than I'd imagined. The bullet had entered his left shoulder, probably shattering bone, definitely damaging muscle tissue. 5 feet. This was it. The point of no return. Either he would accept my help or... I didn't want to think about the alternative. I slowly extended my hand, palm down, fingers relaxed. The universal gesture of peace. Kong's massive head moved, tracking my hand. His nostrils flared, taking in my scent, processing this strange human who spoke in gorilla sounds. I'm going to touch you now, I said, voice barely above a whisper. Please, please trust me. When my hand finally made contact with Kong's matted fur, time literally stopped. His entire body tensed. Every muscle coiled like a spring ready to strike. I froze, hand still on his shoulder, feeling the unnatural heat radiating from his fevered skin. We stayed like that for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. Then Kong did something that shattered my entire worldview. He exhaled, one long shuddering breath, and his muscles relaxed. Tears welled up in my eyes. This magnificent creature, this king of the jungle, had just given me permission, trust, against every instinct, against every natural law that governs predator and potential threat. He was trusting me. Thank you, I whispered, and carefully began examining the wound. It was bad, really devastatingly bad. The bullet was still lodged inside, infection had already set in. Fever was burning through his body like wildfire. Without immediate treatment, I got to work. First, antiseptic to clean the wound. Kong flinched, a low rumble building in his chest, but he didn't move. I had to extract the bullet, the most dangerous part. One wrong move, one spike of pain too intense. And Kong's patience could shatter. This is going to hurt, I told him, knowing he couldn't understand the words, but hoping my tone would somehow prepare him. As I carefully inserted the surgical forceps into the wound, I found myself almost unconsciously humming, a lullaby my mother used to sing to me. Ridiculous, I know. A lullaby for an adult silverback gorilla. But something miraculous happened. Kong's breathing slowed, became regular. His eyes, which had been narrowed in pain, softened slightly. As I extracted the bullet, Kong took one sharp intake of breath, but he didn't hurt me. Instead, something impossible happened. His massive hand, easily the size of a dinner plate, slowly moved toward mine. I froze, expecting the worst. But Kong, with a control that defied belief, gently placed his hand over mine, not to stop me, not to threaten, just contact, connection. My vision blurred with tears. Here I was, in the middle of the Congo jungle, sharing an impossible moment with a wounded king. His hand on mine wasn't just physical contact, it was communication. It was him saying, I know you're helping. I know it hurts, but I trust you. Bullet finally out, I began injecting antibiotics, the strong dose needed for his massive body weight. As I bandaged the wound, my hands moved on autopilot while my mind struggled to process what was happening. Kong's eyes met mine, and in that gaze, I saw something that science says doesn't exist in animals: gratitude. Pure, unmistakable gratitude. After completing the treatment, I slowly began to back away. Kong's hand slipped from mine, but his eyes never left my face. Just before I moved out of reach, he did something that still gives me goosebumps when I remember it. He nodded, a slow, deliberate lowering and raising of his massive head. A gesture so human, so impossible, that if I didn't have video proof from my body camera, no one would ever believe me. When I got back to the sanctuary, everybody was in shock. Tom practically tackled me, oscillating between relief and fury. "You're insane," he shouted. "You could have died. Kong could have—" "But he didn't," I said quietly. "He let me help him. Nobody believed the full story. A wounded silverback, calmly accepting medical treatment from a human. Impossible. Tom said it was probably the fever, making Kong too weak to react properly. Others suggested I was in shock, misremembering crucial details. But the next morning, something happened that silenced every single doubter. I was on my morning walk, my regular route along the sanctuary's observation trail. This path ran near Kong's territory, but was separated by a natural ravine, a safe distance for observation. There, right in the middle of the trail, something had been placed. A flower. But not just any flower. This was the ghost orchid of Virunga, one of the rarest flowers in the entire world. It only grows in the deepest, most inaccessible parts of the jungle. Local tribes believe it has healing properties, calling it the heart of the forest. Scientists have been trying to study it for decades, but finding even one is nearly impossible. And this flower had been deliberately placed, not dropped, not blown there by wind, carefully, intentionally positioned right in the center of the path, where I walk every single morning. My hands trembled as I picked it up. It was fresh, probably picked at dawn, which meant I looked toward the forest line, and there, partially hidden behind thick bamboo stalks, was Kong, standing, walking, already showing signs of recovery that should have taken weeks, if not months. Our eyes met across the distance. He was too far for me to see clearly, but I swear he was watching me find his gift. Dr. Marcus Webb, our senior primatologist, examined the flower with absolute disbelief. "This is impossible," he kept repeating. Kong would have had to travel miles into dangerous territory to find this. With his injury, in his condition, it's simply not possible. Maybe he had help from his family, someone suggested. Marcus shook his head vigorously. The placement was too deliberate, too intentional. Gorillas don't typically leave offerings. This behavior, it's completely unprecedented in all of primatology, but I knew. This wasn't about typical behavior or scientific precedent. This was Kong's way of saying thank you. A gift from a king to the human who had saved his life. The ghost orchid now sits preserved in my office, a constant reminder of that impossible day. But Kong's gift wasn't just the flower. That incident changed everything. My career, my perspective, but most importantly, the relationship between Kong and me. The media picked up the story. "Woman saves silverback gorilla" became headlines around the world. National Geographic produced a documentary. Scientists from every corner of the globe came to study Kong's behavior, his unprecedented display of gratitude and intelligence. But for me, the real change was internal. Kong fully recovered. Within weeks, he was back to leading his family as strong as ever. But something had fundamentally shifted in how he interacted with humans, specifically with me. Research teams documented how Kong would appear whenever I was in the observation area. Not threatening, just present, watching. Sometimes he would make soft vocalizations, the same rumbling sounds I had made that day to comfort him. 3 years have passed since that day. I still work at the sanctuary, still trying to protect these magnificent creatures. Kong is now the subject of multiple research papers on primate intelligence and emotional capacity. But papers and research can't capture what I experience every morning. This morning, too, I was on my usual walk. The sun was just breaking through the canopy, casting golden streams through the morning mist. And there he was, Kong, sitting on his favorite rock overlooking the valley. Our eyes met. 3 years, more than 1,000 days. And still that connection remains unbroken. Kong slowly raised his massive hand, the same hand that had touched mine that day when I was extracting the bullet. He held it up, palm facing me, a greeting, an acknowledgement, a reminder of our shared moment. I smiled and raised my hand in return. Mirror gesture. Two different species, separated by millions of years of evolution, connected by something deeper than biology. The young gorillas in Kong's group watch these interactions with curiosity. The newest addition, a young male born last year, seems particularly intrigued. Kong's mate often sits beside him during these morning encounters, as if she too understands the significance of our bond. Dr. Webb has theories. He talks about cognitive evolution, about the possibility that traumatic experiences can trigger new neural pathways in primates. He's published papers suggesting that Kong's behavior indicates a level of emotional intelligence previously undocumented in wild gorillas. But theories and papers miss the simple, profound truth Kong remembered. He remembered the pain, the fear, and the relief. He remembered a human who broke protocol, who risked everything to save him. And in his own way, with his own limited means, he said thank you, not just with the ghost orchid, though that remains the most tangible proof, but with every morning greeting, every peaceful encounter, every moment of trust between our species. Last month, something extraordinary happened. A young female in Kong's group was injured, a deep gash from a territorial dispute. The group was agitated, protective, keeping all humans at a distance. But then Kong did something remarkable. He personally escorted me to the injured female. The other gorillas parted like the Red Sea, creating a path. Kong sat beside the wounded female, his hand on her shoulder, calming her as I cleaned and dressed her wound. The entire time, Kong watched me work. And when I was done, when the young female was bandaged and the antibiotics administered, Kong repeated that same impossible gesture from 3 years ago. He nodded. Park visitors often ask me if I'm ever afraid. Working so closely with these powerful animals, they want to know how I can trust them, how I can be sure they won't suddenly turn on me. I tell them about that morning 3 years ago, about blood and trust and impossible understanding. But a gift left on a trail, a flower so rare that its very presence defied all logic. But mostly I tell them this: fear exists when there's the unknown. But when you've looked into the eyes of a wounded king and seen him choose trust over instinct, when you've received a thank you that transcends species and language, when you've witnessed gratitude in its purest, most raw form, fear becomes irrelevant. Kong taught me that compassion has no boundaries, that kindness speaks a universal language, that even in the wildest hearts, there exists the capacity for connection, for gratitude, for something that looks remarkably like love. Some people say animals don't have emotions. They say whatever we see is just projection, anthropomorphism, our human need to find meaning where none exists. To them, I say, come to Virunga. Stand on the observation trail at dawn. Watch a massive silverback gorilla raise his hand in greeting to the human who saved his life. See the intelligence in those ancient eyes, the memory, the conscious choice to trust and acknowledge, and then tell me animals don't remember. Tell me they don't feel. Tell me that the connection between living beings is limited by species or science or what we think we know about the world. Kong is older now. Silver truly dominates his back, and his movements are more measured, more careful. But he still rules his kingdom with wisdom and strength. His family has grown, the population of mountain gorillas slowly recovering thanks to conservation efforts. Sometimes, when I'm doing routine health checks on the younger gorillas, Kong watches from a distance, not interfering, just observing, trusting. His presence is a silent endorsement telling his family, this human is safe, this human helped me, this human is friend. That word friend feels both too small and too human for what exists between us. But language fails when trying to describe connections that transcend ordinary experience. 3 years ago, I saved a gorilla's life. But in truth, Kong saved mine too. He saved me from the cynicism that comes from years of seeing human cruelty toward animals. He saved me from the belief that we are separate from nature, superior and disconnected. He showed me that in our capacity for mutual aid, for gratitude, for recognition of each other's worth. We are all part of the same extraordinary tapestry of life. The ghost orchid in my office has long since dried, its petals preserved but fragile. But what it represents remains as powerful as ever. A bridge between worlds, a thank you that needed no words. A reminder that kindness, once given, creates ripples that extend far beyond the initial gesture. Tomorrow morning, I'll walk the trail again. And if the mist clears just right, I'll see him there, Kong, my unlikely friend, the king who chose trust over fear. He'll raise his hand, I'll raise mine, and for a moment the space between human and animal will disappear entirely, because that's what Kong taught me. That's what that impossible day 3 years ago revealed. We are not as different as we think we are. And in our shared capacity for gratitude, for connection, for choosing trust in moments of vulnerability, we find the truth that every conservationist knows, but rarely gets to experience so directly. To save another is to save yourself. To be trusted by the wild is to understand your place in it, and to receive gratitude from a creature who owes you nothing. That is to touch the very heart of what makes life sacred. Kong still reigns in Virunga, and every morning, with a raised hand and a remembered kindness, he reminds me that some connections transcend everything we thought we knew about the boundaries between species. That is the gift that shocked the world. Not just a rare flower, but the proof that compassion speaks a universal language, and it always, always receives an answer.